Overall, how was your experience here in Columbus? Of course, you took your stage out west just a few weeks ago. First time here competing in Columbus, not your first time. But what was that like for you?
No, it was incredible. I'm a little bit spoiled. You might not think that all the social media views would translate to in person with a huge crowd, but I almost kind of was prepped for, coming out with a suit on and everything else from all the diving that I used to do. So, being pretty much totally exposed was already my forte. So now with a tan, lights and everything, plus being able to be on the same stage as all these great guys across from me, I mean, it was a pretty blessed kind of feeling.
Was there nerves? You're relatively new to competing, certainly not new to the gym. Was there nerves coming out on this stage, the lights, everything in the backdrop?
Not as much as I would have thought, honestly. Because it's really a good indication for me of like, all right, there's nothing else I can do here. If it's 2 days before your show and you've got an extra 5 pounds of anything to lose, it's not coming off. So you're either ready or you're not. So I was really kind of embodying that. So once everything was in place, I've got nothing to do but play some Earth, Wind, and Fire and try to hit as big of a side chest as I could.
I wasn't ready for Earth, Wind, and Fire, but it's a solid choice.
I wanted to change it up. Everybody's got either a little bit of an orchestra, kind of a rock music, so I wanted to be a little different with that. Plus, I just like them.
Jay, did you ever pose to Earth, Wind, and Fire?
I don't even know what that is.
It's a band, man. Earth, Wind, and Fire. Come on.
Hey, you never heard of Boogie Wonderland?
No.
It's not for everybody.
We can teach them.
Ronnie, you know what that is, Ronnie?
Of course I do, Jay. That's soul music. I grew up with them, by the way.
You're a little out of the loop here, apparently, Jay. He grew up listening to Gin Blossoms, right, Jay? All right. Speaking of first-timers, Phil Heath, making your first time on our broadcast team, and the feedback from the fans, Phil, from the live stream has been absolutely incredible. You brought so much to the stream. How was it being up in the broadcast booth for the first time here at the Arnold Classic?
Oh, it was outstanding, and shout out to all the champions, making my job a lot easier. Just having the opportunity to do the live stream was pretty freaking awesome, being with Sid and Nick and Todd. But overall, just the production, being able to have it really streamlined process, but most importantly, seeing history be made. With Derek Lunsford, going into that show, we weren't quite sure as to what we would see. And I know this guy has had a lot of adversity, but what happens with adversity is that you have an opportunity to turn that around and get a victory, and that's what he did. So it was really neat to be able to see that, and especially being away from competitive bodybuilding as far as being on the stage, hitting those poses. I love doing the live stream. I was telling some guys at the expo, they're like, well, how does it feel being away from competing and such? You look great, this and that, and I'm like, of course, thank you. But having the ability to talk about the best bodies in the world is my 8, 9, and 10 Sandow, if you ask me. So I really appreciate that opportunity. I look forward to coming back.
All right, now, Ronnie, we saw you up front. You were sitting right by two of our other champions, Mike Ashley and Rich Gaspari, for most of the show. We had a former Arnold Classic champion, Derek, making his debut. What were you thinking there up watching the big screens and these guys on stage? Pretty solid competition here at the 2025 Arnold?
It was pretty good. I think the bodybuilding has kind of changed from, when I was competing. We had a lot of guys that were really, really, really good. A lot of guys in great shape. And that was because when I grew up and came through bodybuilding back in the day, we didn't have social media. So to make money, you had to compete. And when you stepped on that stage, you had to be in the best condition ever, because everybody up there was hungry. Like I said, only way we had to make money was through competing, and everybody was competing. I remember one week I beat Flex in a show, and the next week he would beat me in the show, and I couldn't figure out why, but thinking back, I knew why. Flex was really hungry. He was, he needed money, like we all do. But today, I don't see the guys competing as much as we did back in the day. Of course, Derek kind of stepped up and did the Olympia, being a former Mr. Olympia, did the Arnold Classic. Back when I was going through bodybuilding, I was the only Mr. Olympia that did the Arnold Classic. And it was probably the hardest thing that I've ever done in life, because this sport can take a lot out of you. And when you're real popular, people expect you to show up and do certain things. And it's kind of like, at Mr. Olympia, you're pretty much the face of bodybuilding. So every time there's something to do with bodybuilding, they want you to pretty much to show up and be there, like when I was Mr. Olympia, I did like all the talk shows. I did Jay Leno, did Montel, Roseanne, they had quite a few talk shows back in those days too. So today, like I said, I don't see that many guys competing like we did back in the day, and for good reason. Like I said, we didn't have social media. We didn't have that way of making the money that those guys are making now. So seeing the competition last night, to be honest with you, this guy right here was probably the clearest cut winner I've ever seen in a show, and I think that has something to do with it. You can tell when a guy's hungry and and when he's trying to get some revenge and trying to, let people know who's the best on stage. You can see it on stage. And like I said, that's what he did last night.
All right, now if we know somebody that knows anything about that hungry mindset, Jay, it's you. Of course, Derek, came into this year's Olympia as the champion, lost that title, came back and won the Arnold. A little bit different in your case, losing the Olympia title in 08. You didn't come back at the Arnold, but you came back again in 09 in a fashion of likes we've never seen before. But you kind of know that mindset of what Derek went through after losing that Olympia title and knowing how much was on the line for your next show. Talk to us a little bit about that.
You go through a lot of changes in your career, and you have different challenges, and people know the battles I had with Ronnie, who was a huge inspiration to me. Coming in, I remember getting second to Ronnie and being able to stand next to him for the first time on that stage, and I was still a fan. I was just so honored to be there, but at the same time, I had to catch myself and say, well, I need to beat this guy. And obviously we know the challenge of that. We talk about levels, and he just talked about, getting better every show. And, we had to go back to the drawing board. It didn't matter what happened. And, me losing to Dexter in 08 was a disappointing moment. And I had to kind of reinvent myself and find myself. And everyone kind of knows the comeback year, the quad stomp and all that, which is huge. It's been inspirational for a lot of people, because still to this point, no one's ever done that in history, to lose the title and come back to win it. And Derek, we'll see if you're going to do that come October. I know it's kind of been said, Brandon tried to do it and Hadi tried to do it, and it hasn't been done. But, Phil was there for that ride with me. We trained together in the end of 08, beginning of 09. We had a lot of late night conversations on the mindset, as he was coming up. And, this is a guy that was chasing the title, ended up beating me to become the champion. And, having that support team is very important. Surround yourself with people that believe in you. And, he sat there and, no matter what, he was going after the same title. We had a lot of conversations where he was so supportive and pushed me to be better. And, we laughed backstage, even though he didn't have the best showing in 09. I thought he'd be the guy that I'd be battling with that year. And then he fell back a little bit, but he was still rooting me on. We went out and did a lot of late nights together after the shows, and it's just like with Ronnie, man. We spent a lot of time eating and out at late night at the clubs, and but then when we got to stage, it was all business. So there's a lot of great memories. It's nice to reflect back on now. These current guys are all competing now to get to that level and win multiple times, but it takes the right mindset and dedication. And man, without all you guys, as fans and supported, and I know you guys, you come to these shows and you have your favorites. We appreciate all of you that come out and support it and, take the time to spend with us. And I love seeing, the transition of the sport and see, the classic guys come up and start doing stuff. Mike, you looked phenomenal. You told me back, a few months ago that you were coming to win this title.
Thank you, Jay.
And Sam, we got to train together, and I said you looked decent. I hope you took it to heart.
Yeah, probably more than people know, I think.
And I talked about the posing, and the posing, your presentation, and listen, man, we all support each other no matter what, and we listen to the response of the fans give us, and but we all work together no matter what, whether we're competitive or not on the stage. I feel like we all have the same values. Like Ronnie said, it's all the hard work. The gym time is our favorite time, right, guys? I mean, we love the training. The stage is just our platform to showcase and be able to show all the hard work and dedication we put in. So thank you guys for being a part of it, and it's been a great journey.
All right, now Sam, you've had a chance, over the last couple of years, you've done some work with the likes of Jay and some of the other biggest names in the bodybuilding and fitness world. It's got to be a little bit surreal for you, be up on a stage. Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, Phil Heath, a couple of our Arnold Classic champions here tonight. It's been really a whirlwind handful of years.
And the legacies they've been able to leave behind. And the way I always look at it, or at least that I try to, with maybe a touch of delusion, which if you want to do anything maybe crazy in a sense, you might need just at least a little bit of crazy in yourself. But it's like, all right, if they could do it, why wouldn't I be able to do it? Right? I mean, you've seen the proof, but it's a little bit different to actually put it into action on your own. So that's something where that legacy that everybody else has left and sort of embodied is something I'll always be able to work towards.
Now we have a handful of audience questions that we've taken that we're going to work in throughout the course of this panel. Arnold's going to be here and he's going to be out on stage, but these gentlemen are going to stay after Arnold has to leave for his other obligations. But we're going to be getting to those questions throughout, again, our presentation here this afternoon. Ronnie, somebody had a question for you. They wanted to know if you could do anything different, what would you do now?
That same old question I get asked daily, and I'm quite sure everybody already know the answer. About 5 weeks out from Miss Olympia in 2001, I was pretty strong in the gym, as I've always been. Because the gym is my place of relaxation for the most part. And I was able to deadlift 800 for a couple of reps, not being the biggest guy I've ever been. So I took it upon myself to try to squat that same weight. I'd never done it before. So on the day, I guess I could say, even leading up to the week of it, I was just saying to myself, I got to get 2 reps, And of course, the day comes and went to bed, you know, I had 2 reps in mind. When I woke up on my way to the gym, I had 2 reps in my mind. You know, like I said, I had already deadlifted it. 5 weeks out from the Olympia at a, you know, decent weight, but I wasn't, you know, fully loaded. But when I got ready to squat 800, I was fully loaded. At my peak weight of about 325 pounds. So in my mind, I'm thinking I got to get 2, you know. So I can even remember wrapping up to even do it. I can remember Brian hit me on the, you know, hit me on my back, get me fired up. And the first rep was real easy. It was like I was doing 400, you know. So I'm saying to myself, okay, that went easy. So I was halfway there, you know. So I did the second rep. I went a little bit lower, like, you know, because it was easy. And I put it up because, you know, I accomplished my goal. And as soon as I racked it, I said to myself, that was pretty damn light. It was like one of the lightest weights I've done, even though it was pretty massive. And I said to myself, oh man, I could have done at least 4 more reps. Because I know, you know, you've been training as long as I have, you know your strength, you know how many reps you can do on certain weight by the feel. And I'm like, man, I sure hate that I put it up. And I'm not going to try it again because I don't want to risk fate, because when I was doing that 800-pound deadlift, you know, I kind of pulled my bicep just a little bit, you know. And I said to myself, well, that's over with, so how can I make that up? I like, you know, my next exercise was going to be leg press, and I said to myself, okay, I'm gonna make up for it over here. So, you know, we loaded it up, the leg press. I bought this special made leg press, you know, where I could put a lot of weight on there. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna put as much weight as possible on there. We put so much weight on there, we had to bring out a calculator to add it up. We calculated everything that was there. It came to 2,300 pounds. And, you know, I'm thinking, lightweight?
Well, that's not a bad way to make up. That's not a bad way to make up for missing that 800-pound 4 reps. But ladies and gentlemen, at this time we have a very special guest to welcome to the stage. How about everybody get on your feet, put your hands together for the one and only, the greatest of all time, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's fantastic. See, this is why we came up with this idea to have the next day after the competition's over, to have all the champions sit down, not the guys that kind of like try to act like the smart guys in bodybuilding. You know, there's a lot of them out there that have never won anything, and they run around and they pretend like they've all the knowledge in nutrition and in bodybuilding and in powerlifting and in all of those activities. And they have a lot of knowledge, but I think the best is when you have the best in the world that have won the championships answer your questions. That is the idea here. And of course, you've been doing a great job getting this information out of them. You did a great job yesterday and 2 days ago. Unbelievable. Let's give him a big hand. He's the greatest MC. Unbelievable, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what do you want to talk about?
Well, I want to talk about first the incredible weekend that we've had so far here in Columbus. You brought up last night a 20% increase in ticket sales. Now, we know the goal every year. We say it every year. We're going to come back bigger and better next year. But 2025 has been off the charts. What did you think walking around the expo, checking out the show, seeing all the booths, the vendors, and all the fans here in 2025?
Well, it was absolutely packed. It was fantastic. And this is what the whole thing is about. I always had this vision and this dream to have a place where you walk in and there's just energy everywhere. So you walk a few booths and you look at the equipment or the clothing line or the food supplements, and all of a sudden you're in front of a competition, the amateur bodybuilding competition, and you see those most muscular guys in the amateur division posing and having a great time up there. The judges are counting the scores and everything, and you're seeing all of this in front of you. And then you go to the next hall, and there you see again more equipment, guys exercising. You can try out the equipment, you can try out food supplements. They have all those protein drinks they can try out, and there's energy there. And then all of a sudden there's the world's strongest man competing. And then you go to the next hall, and there are the women competing, and this is how it goes. So this is what I always envisioned, is to combine the kind of the expo with the equipment manufacturers, clothing manufacturers, food supplement manufacturers, all of these various different vendors and companies, combine it with the different sports. So no matter where you go, there's activities and there's inspiration. And so this is what we have accomplished. And so this is why I was very happy. So when I walked around yesterday, I mean, imagine, I remember walking in there, and then all of a sudden the guy said, Arnold, come over here, you have to go on stage. I said, where? The world's strongest firefighters. And I was right there with the world's strongest firefighters. And these guys are taking this hydrants, 300-pound hydrants, and lifting it up like nothing on the table, right? I mean, it's crazy stuff. And women, the world's strongest women firefighters. And then you go over to the other hall, and they have the world's strongest man. And it's just activity after activity. Then I come here at night. And I have to say, yesterday I was blown away by the bodybuilding champions. Because from Friday, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, but to me, from Friday to Saturday, there was such a change in each one's performance and in their definition and their perfection. I mean, the day before I was complaining, he's not putting in the waist enough. God damn it, why doesn't he? He should have flexed the abs more. It's like Joe Vito always says, you know, when you flex the abs, go, you know, you cough kind of internally to get more the abs out and stuff. I said, why didn't he do that? Why didn't he do that? Then the next day, all of those guys were so ripped, so defined. Their posing was perfect. It was like unbelievable when I watched this. I said, the change, which just shows to you that practice makes perfect. The prejudging, even though very, very dangerous, because that's where you get the scores, most of the points. But the prejudging has, you know, kind of made them pose for so many hours that they lost all of the fluid, and they got sharper and sharper and sharper. And so the next day they were perfect. So that was really extraordinary to see, which just shows to you how much more training that actually you can do. They should do the week before, every day, a prejudging, a day of prejudging. You know, Ronnie, remember with Joe Vito, he always had us pose the day before the competition. And it was like, I always hated it. And I said, come on, Joe, let's do it the day after competition. He says, no. We did it before. And so this whole day of posing, and you know how crazy he got. You know, he did, hold it there, hold it. No, now, come on, Arnold, flex your calves. Come on. Oh, those bodybuilders, those bastards, eh? And they will always complain about something. But you will be standing there and you will be flexing your calf, and he says, put in the waist, and you put in the waist. He says, I need moisturization on the back. And then you fix and you stand there for half an hour for one pose. And you're sweating. But then when you do that the whole day, and the next day you go into the competition, you're totally in shape. You're chiseled. You know, so this is why it is so important to just practice and practice. So I was blown away by the shape everyone was in, how close the competition was. Because it could have gone either way in the top 2 or 3. I mean, I was like going back, I changed my mind 15 times while I was seeing the pose off. It was like crazy. I've never seen people being that close together and such great performances. And the posing was fantastic. I just really enjoyed it yesterday. So I enjoyed Friday. I mean, how can I not enjoy the wellness international? Hello. I mean, the fitness, the wellness international. I don't even know how they come up with those titles, may I remind you. I cannot take credit for that. This is all IFBB stuff. You know, as much as like, you know, seeing the guys that come out with those Bermuda shorts all the way down to the knees, and I have no idea why the federation makes them hide only one part of the body, which is from the waist to the knees. I mean, think about that. What is that about? Why can't we not just have them have regular posing trunks? The thighs were good, right? The quadriceps was cut. The calves were good. I mean, not everyone, but I mean, it was good. So why hide it? You know, I was just concerned that one day they come out and they say, okay, you guys have to wear pajamas when you go out there or something like that. I said, oh God, oy vey, you know. So I just, sometimes they do things or they name things a certain way that it's a little bit beyond me, but it's all fun. The key thing is that we pack the house, that everyone has a good time. And the other thing that I liked about the competition was the way you moved forward. I mean, there was not one single second there was a lag time. Because I always, for years and years and years, I always was complaining the day after the competition. I said, if you edit this show down, you can edit it down to an hour and a half, 2 hours. Why are we sitting there for 3.5 hours? Because of stupid talking with the MC. I said, they make up dialogue. And then all of a sudden now we have an MC that doesn't do that. We go right into it. We see right away the most muscular man in the world on stage, and bang, we go into it, and we go through the whole thing. And then the guys get introduced. The guys, you know their name, you know their history, where they're coming from, end of story. I don't want to hear more. Don't give me no drama. Don't give me, he gave this, and then yesterday did this, and 2 days ago he did this. Fuck, this is all bullshit, okay? just let me, because I believe there's a reason why movies are 2 hours, hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, sometimes 2 hours and 15 minutes, or if you see a Jim Cameron movie, sometimes 2.5 hours, or 3. But I mean, there's a reason why they're limited and not 4 hours. Because people don't have the patience to sit there 4 hours, no matter how good it is. And I don't want to see a bodybuilding show that is longer. At 9:30, it has to be over. If you start at 7, at 9:30, it has to be over. End of story. That's what I demand every single year. Sometimes we go a little bit over, but that is the goal, not 3.5 hours. It's all bogus, and we don't need to do it.
Thank you very much. Now, you're talking about movies. I do have to mention that your facial hair a little longer than what we're used to seeing it. You're in the process of shooting a movie. You actually came here to Columbus from New York. You want to talk to us a little bit about your latest project that you're shooting?
Yeah, it's a Christmas movie. It's kind of like Jingle All the Way, of course, a different story. And I play Santa Claus. Finally got to that age where I can do that. and actually this stage of the beard is the stage where I have lost a lot of my powers, my special powers as Santa Claus, because my bag got stolen by an elf, an evil elf that was greedy. And this elf, she wanted to kind of celebrate her own Christmas and do her own thing, and start not giving away toys but selling toys and all this kind of stuff. So corruption to the highest level. So anyway, so Santa, all of a sudden there's this problem. He comes to New York. It's the day before Christmas Eve, and he doesn't have his bag, and so he slowly loses his powers. And so this whole thing is about finding someone that can help me to get the bag back and all this stuff. But in any case, then there's periods like this last week. We've shot the whole week where I'm on stage at a Christmas performance in a hotel, a Santa, and they think that I'm part of the act and all of that. And I'm getting my power slowly back because I'm getting closer and closer to my bag. And so you see me now, I don't know if you saw pictures online, but with a full beard, like big beard like that. Very uncomfortable to wear. They glue it on top of this beard, and then you can't eat, so they give you a protein drink with a straw, because you can't really open up your mouth more than when you talk, but you can't, bite into something because otherwise the beard gets ripped off, and all of the. So I mean, it was not an easy week. I lost 5 pounds that week because I couldn't eat my pizza. And exactly, and all the strudel and all of the stuff that I normally eat. But I mean, in any case, as my director said, actually, Arnold, you look a little bit better now with the leaner weight. So, okay, that's nice. But in any case, so this has been a really interesting week this last week. And on Monday we go back again. Tomorrow I will be filming again, and I'm filming with the Rockettes. So these are the best dancers in the world. They practice 5-6 hours of dancing a day. And these Rockettes, these girls have to every year they have to go and try out to get back into the Rockettes. So it's not like you get in there and then for a few years you're in there. No, every year you have to try out again. But I tell you, the performance of those Rockettes is like 20 of them, how they're in sync with their moves and with the amount of practice they do, and the perfect voices they have when they sing and all that stuff. It's really fantastic. But anyway, the movie, it has also in it Alan Ritson, who is, of course, a huge guy. He's like 6'4", and he's a monster guy. I mean, he really built up his body for his Reacher character. And so he's the guy that I find to help me find the bag. And so we have had a great time. We finished shooting in 3 weeks from now, and it's coming out this coming December with Amazon. Amazon is streaming it. And, who knows, maybe it's in the theaters, but it's meant for streaming for Amazon. So that's what I'm doing right now. And then Fuba is coming out in June 11th or 12th, whenever Father's Day comes out around that time. And so I'm looking forward to that also.
Well, we're definitely excited to see that. When talking about movies, one of the audience questions that we had, and we took very few for you, was what was your favorite movie? Looking back on all the projects that you've done over the years, do you have one that stood out as your particular favorite?
No, I never really can come up with a favorite. To me, this is always kind of like, it sounds like a simple question, but it's actually very complicated. Because whenever you say favorite, it's like, who is your favorite person? I mean, it's like, how do you pick that? It's like, it's very hard to say, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite book? What's your favorite this? Because I've like, when you think about Twins, Twins was a movie that I had the most fun making. But, when I look at Terminator 2 or True Lies, these were also movies that I'm very proud of and I'm very happy about, but they were not the most fun to make. It was miserable. I mean, Terminator 2, we shot like 80 days at night, and night shooting is very, very difficult. And Jim Cameron, of course, as a director, is very, very tough to work with. And he's very demanding, and he's a perfectionist. And so those movies were not fun. I mean, the stunts, they were always dangerous. There was explosions around all the time. And rigging, where you hang off wires and you swing, and things can go wrong. And all of those kind of things. So there's movies that I enjoyed the outcome. There's movies that I enjoyed the making of the movie. So there's a different kind of things. But I am very fortunate, having done, Predator and True Lies, Total Recall, and the Terminator movies, and Twins, and Junior, and Kindergarten Cop, and all of these various different things. I just, I feel enriched, and I feel really proud of the amount of great directors that I was able to work with, the great actors that I was able to work with. I mean, think about that. The first movie, like Stay Hungry, that I did in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm working right off the top with Jeff Bridges and with Sally Fields. I mean, how many people can co-star on their first big project with Sally Fields and with Jeff Bridges? I mean, it's like amazing the kind of learning experience. You watch them. They were very seasoned actors, and for me to learn from them and to have a guy like Bob Raferson directing, I mean, it was really fantastic. So I was very fortunate with my career. Luckily, I didn't listen to the naysayers, because you can imagine, here I was like a bodybuilder, like 245, and I wanted to get into movies. And everyone said, forget it, it's not going to happen. The accent is off. And they thought that no one with an accent, that it was a foreigner, ever made it to become a leading man. And then they thought that, the Hercules movie period was over. It's now the 70s. It's Dustin Hoffman and Al Pacino and Woody Allen. These are the in characters at that time. People that were little shrimps. And they said, forget it. It's not going to happen. And then it happened anyway. People literally found scripts for me, like Stay Hungry. There was a script about bodybuilding they found for me. And then Streets of San Francisco, where I played the psychopathic kind of bodybuilder that, tried to kill everybody, that talked kind of funny about bodybuilding. I was strangling this girl. But in any case, so, then Conan the Barbarian. I mean, after they saw, after Ed Pressman saw Pumping Iron, he immediately went out and bought the Conan rights and started having the script written by Oliver Stone, and then by John Milius, who then rewrote it and directed it. So I mean, that is really, just shows you that the no, it would never happen, how it slowly did happen. And then all of a sudden, in the 80s, all the muscle movies came in. Every action movie had to have someone in there that had a believable body. And then Sly started getting in great shape, and Van Damme started getting in great shape, and Dolph Lundgren started, going from just kickboxing to bodybuilding, and started working out and building the muscles and all that stuff. So all of a sudden, the 80s became kind of like the new invention of how action movies should look. And so I was very fortunate that I was part of that era and was part of the development.
Now, when you were filming Conan, your first lead role, at the time when you're going through the filming, processing all the shoots and everything like that, and then when it came out, did you ever imagine that it would end up having the cultural impact that it ended up going?
No, I mean, there's no way of knowing anything, really. I mean, it's like, how do you guess how the audience will react? You always hope that you do a film that will be memorable. You hope that people go and see it, and it is #1 at the box office, and it plays well internationally, and you promote the hell out of it, and all of those things, So you do that, but I think that John Milius had a certain following already, and then of course Conan itself with the comic books had a certain following, so I benefited from that. And then I tried to play Conan exactly the way Milius interpreted it for me, and I tried to play it that way, and so it was #1 hit when it came out, and it was a huge success, and I was very happy about that. And it's really interesting when you say certain lines like crush your enemies, see them driven before you and hear the lamentation of their women, you know. I mean, it's like, so when you do the line in the movie, it's just another line. But people really, you know, they pick certain things. Like, I mean, when we did that line, everyone ran around and say the line, Arnold, you know, crush your enemy and all this. And I had to repeat it over and over. And then I remember when we did the movie Terminator after that. And I said, I'll be back. Well, that was just another line in the movie. It was nothing else than another line. Other than I argued with Jim Cameron about how it should be said, because I said, I want to say, I will be back. And he said, no, say, I'll be back. And I said, it sounds weird. I said, let me just say, I will be back. And he says, no, the script says, I'll be back. I wrote the script, so let's just stay with the script. You know, I don't tell you how to act. You don't tell me how to write. And so this is how the conversation went, as it usually goes with Jim Cameron. And so I said, I'll be back. And he says, okay, we shoot it 10 different ways. And so we shot it 10 times. And we just kept the camera running, and I kept saying, you know, I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back. You know, so we just did it 10 different ways, because so when they edit, they can then decide which way they're going to go. And they picked the more intense kind of a version. And then all of a sudden everyone is trying to have me repeat that line. It was the most kind of repeated line probably in movie history. And so it's just, you don't know when you make the movie that that's what's going to happen. And the same is, you know, with when in Predator, when a guy comes around the corner and they take my knife, boom, stab him through the chest, and he gets pinned. And I say, stick around. You know, it's stupid. It's all stupid lines, right? But the minute it works, people enjoy that, because you have the intensity, you have the violence, but you ease off the violence with a little humor. And so that's what I think this line's all about. And so I've had endless amount of lines, and put the cookie down, and get to the chopper, and all those kind of things that become kind of popular, not just because of the line, but I mean because the way I say it, because I pronounce most of the stuff the wrong way. So it's like, you know, I remember that when we did the Kindergarten Cop, and the girl says, maybe it's a tumor, and I said tumor with a D, you know. So the kids started laughing, kind of like, what an idiot is he? He cannot even pronounce tumor right, you know. So I said, it's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all, you know. And the kids were laughing. So the director decided, oh, we have to keep that. Let's just keep it that way, you know. And so I kept pronouncing it the wrong way. So it's just a way of pronouncing, so, you know, the way it comes out. And people sometimes enjoy it because it's a little different than normal. And why not use it, right? And so anyway, I've been having a good time with all that.
Now, speaking of movies, so many people, I'm sure in this audience, all across the globe, got introduced to you and to bodybuilding from Pumping Iron. Now, last night here on this stage, we all saw you had the opportunity to present Mike Katz with the Lifetime Achievement Award. Of course, Mike featured alongside you in Pumping Iron. How special was that to be able to present that award to Mike last night?
Well, it's great because Mike is just such a wonderful guy. And, you know, I got to know Mike really well, and he's just always been a very sensitive guy. You know, you could see that he didn't have an easy childhood. He was a lot of times talking about that the neighborhood he grew up, being Jewish, kind of was tough on him because he got beaten up a lot of times when he grew up. But that's what made him kind of like, it's like, you know, Nietzsche said, you know, that what does not kill you will make you stronger. And so, you know, it made him strong. It made him become a football player. It made him become a lifter. It made him become a bodybuilder and a very fierce competitor. I mean, he had an extraordinary body, and He was so much fun to train with. We had so many laughs with him. And like the story I was telling yesterday, with Franco cooking for him lunch, and all of that, us checking him out. How is this chest really always like this? And what would he look like when he sleeps and all that? So all of this are true stories. There's endless amount of stories like with my cats like that. So he's just a great guy. And what I loved about him is that every single time when I met with him, throughout the years when he was judging here at the Arnold Classic, or when he was judging Mr. Universe or Mr. Olympia, it was always about helping to promote bodybuilding. It was never about himself. And then he started the gym business. And for years and decades, he had the gym business. He owned several gyms. And he was really, really working hard to train people, to get them in shape. And he was very adamant about including women and having women trained there and giving them also a chance to not only compete, but also just to get in better shape, to lose weight and so on and so forth. So he was always a really good promoter and ambassador to bodybuilding. And so that's why we wanted to give him that award yesterday. So it was just fantastic.
Now, before you got on stage, we were talking with Derek a little bit. Derek actually trains with the gentleman who took third in the classic physique division, and we were talking a little bit how we're seeing that return of camaraderie in bodybuilding amongst these guys who are out there competing that really felt like it was missing for a few decades. It didn't look like there was ever a time where the camaraderie was stronger during your times of competing in the 60s and 70s. Talk to us about that.
Well, I always, since I was a kid, I had the ability of rally kids around me. And I always was kind of the organizer. I would go out in the village in Tal, where I grew up, and I would say to the guys, I said, hey, let's play cowboy and Indians. And they would say, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And they would like 5, 6 kids, and we started going into the bushes and cutting down branches to make a bow and arrow, and to start shooting bow and arrow and all this stuff, and play Indians. And then it was the cowboys, and they made little guns and stuff like that. And so this is the kind of stuff that we did. And so I think that I always had that talent. So even when I joined in the weightlifting club, I formed right away a clique of guys that were competing in weightlifting, even though I was just like, I was training enough for 1 year or 2 years. And I was forming cliques and training partners and all this. And then we went to visit each other's home because everyone had a dumbbell or a barbell set at home. So I would visit someone that had a pull-down machine, the first kind of a pulling machine, which was unusual for the 60s. And we would go to him and do like 20 sets of pull-down on a pull-down machine. Then someone else had a barbell, and we would take the barbell out in the forest and we'd organize and just do squats or bench press out in the forest, 20 sets, 30 sets, just to have a good time. And for hours we would be out there and having, because it's the only thing we had was one barbell. And so that's what we used, And we did deadlifts and squats and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And so in Munich, the same thing when I went to Munich, I had right away formed a clique of guys that I was working out with. And one of them was Franco Colombo. And Franco Colombo I met a year before in Stuttgart when he won the European powerlifting championship in a light category. And he was like bench pressing a lot, and he was like deadlifting a lot and all this stuff. And I was amazed of how strong he was. And he was always amazed about how muscular I was and how big my muscles were. So he always wanted to get more muscles, and I wanted to get stronger. So we kind of became training partners. But I think it was always kind of, Franco was, of course, a very endearing character. And so when I moved to America, when Joe Weider brought me to America, I missed Franco. So I kept saying to Joe Weider for 9 months, I said, you got to bring Franco over. He's going to be the best short man bodybuilder in the world. And Joe Weider said, nah, I don't want to bring no little people over here from Europe, eh? Come on, I don't want to bring Franco Francesco over. I said, no, it's not Franco Francesco, it's Franco Colombo. No, whatever his name is, I don't want to bring him over. So he was always complaining about it. And then eventually we talked him into it. And he brought over Franco to California. And then we trained together for 3 months like crazy and got ready for the 1969 Mr. Universe contest. And, you know, he won the short category, I won the tall man and the overall and all that stuff. Then we went to London and competed there, and it was just fantastic. So we had, but I mean, I was able to get together like Dave Draper and Franco Colombo. I asked Frank Zane to move out to California and to train with me. Ken Waller, he came out for a short period of time to do a story with Joe Weider, but then he stayed out here. I convinced him to stay out here. So we kind of like slowly grew as a group of guys that you saw in Pumping Iron. And then Mike Katz was one of them that then I said to Joe, I said, why don't you have Mike come out to California and you know, pay for his apartment and have him stay there for a month or two before the competition, and we all trained together. So this is how it really happened. And we just had, even though we were ending up competing against each other, but imagine that even on the day of the competition, we were helping each other. I would be sitting out there like this, and Franco would be posing here, and I would be pointing, you know, because in those days the lighting was not very sophisticated, so I was pointing this way. I was sitting out there, and Franco would move over a little bit to the better lighting situation and all this stuff. So we were helping each other, even though we were competing against each other. So it was that kind of a camaraderie. We had always a great time. We went for lunch together, a lot of times breakfast together. And even when we worked in construction, because Franco and I, we started in a construction company, European masonry experts. It's total bogus, right? But the Americans loved hearing. They thought that the Europeans are better. There was a time when everything in Europe was better. You know, Swedish massages, German mechanics, and German cars and electronics, and a Japanese motorcycle. You know, everything was kind of like foreign. And so Frank and I, we just benefited from that. So we put in an ad in the LA Times that said, European masonry experts. I've never worked on construction at all. But Franco was a trained bricklayer. And so we started this company, and sure enough, I mean, 3 days after we put the first ad in it, there was the earthquake in California, a massive earthquake. I think it was like a 7.9, and it wiped out a lot of buildings and a lot of chimneys and cracked a lot of the foundations of patios and stuff like that. So Frank and I, we got so many jobs that we had to hire some of those bodybuilders. But bodybuilders are basically, in those days, were lazy bastards. They didn't want to work. You know, that's why they were out there. They wanted to just get paid by Joe Weider. And so we said to them, I said, hey, I remember Eddie Giuliani was one of the guys from Gold's Gym that managed Gold's Gym. I said, do you want to work? Oh, yeah, that would be great. And then Eddie Giuliani would be on construction site, and everything that he did was in this direction. So I said to Frank, I said, have you ever thought him, why is it that he never turns around and puts a brick down this way? Why is it always this way? Everything is this way. You know, putting the sand in there in the cement mixer. Everything was this way. So then we realized it was all because the sun was coming from there. He was just on the construction site to get sun and to get a tan. He didn't care about the work at all. You know, so this is the bodybuilders in those days. They could care less about doing the job. And so Frank and I, we always had to fight with them. Ken Waller was on the construction site. Dave Draper helped us with the woodwork because he was good with wood. So, but this is the kind of, you talk about camaraderie, this is the kind of camaraderie we had. We did everything together. We traveled together also. I remember that Joe Wheeler would never pay us the plane ticket to fly in the daytime. We had to take the midnight special. So we had left, and he got the cheapest ticket. So we had to leave, we left at 10 o'clock at night, and then we had to fly first to Chicago. And in Chicago, we had to change planes, because then it's cheaper, when you stop at two other places. And then we flew to Philadelphia. And then from Philadelphia, we changed again, and then we flew to New York. So we got there like at 7 in the morning or at 8 in the morning to New York. So that's the way we used to play. But we had a good time. We had a good time. I remember that the pillowcases with the liver and yeast pills and all of that stuff, so that no one steals it from the other person. And then when someone drank a bottle of milk, they would immediately put the milk down, they drink a big sip, then they put it down, they spit in it so that no one else picks it up and steals the milk from them. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. But this was the 70s. I mean, it was like insane. But the day, of course, we laugh about it, but this was wild, the camaraderie that we had.
Derek, you're not spitting in any of Matt's water bottles, are you?
He better not be spitting mine, I think.
Now, as well as some of your other training partners, we talked about rivalries a little bit before you came on stage. Of course, Jay and Ronnie, some of the greatest rivalries in bodybuilding history took place between those two. You had some great competition with Sergio, but you also had a chance to train with him. I know we've heard lots of fun stories about that. You were the last person, or rather, he was the last person to defeat you, was Sergio. Talk to us a little bit about that, because you guys have a pretty interesting history.
Well, Sergio was a special breed because he was an animal. He came from Cuba, so he had the work ethic. I mean, it didn't matter to him if he had to train 4 hours a day or 6 hours a day. And he was just working. He was working as a butcher. He was working as a police officer. He was having many different jobs. But in sports, he was a baseball player. And so he did kind of like certain twisting movements for baseball, but thousands of reps. That's why he had this kind of small waist. He would take a stick behind and bend over and go back and forth really fast for like 5 minutes. And things that we couldn't do as fast as he did. And I was training with him in Chicago, and just to warm up, we would do 3 sets, 5 sets of 3 combinations. We would do like a set of chin-ups, then he would go to the bench press, and he would do this half reps. But right away, 315 will be on the bench. And then he would go over to the bend over rowing, and he would do a bend over rowing set. And then back to do chin-ups, and he did this 5 times. So by the time we did the 5 sets, supersets, the triple sets, you will be wiped out, because how fast he goes. And then he will go and he will have a little bit of coffee, and then he will say, okay, now let's start training. So, I mean, it was like, that's the kind of a guy he was. He was like endless amount of training, sets. And he just would do endless amount of sets. And in those days, that's what you did. There was not that much of a diet. There was not the kind of diuretics that they have today. That no one took any of this stuff. So when you wanted to be more cut, the only answer that we had was to do more sets. And yes, to go in and to be a little bit on a diet and do not eat any cake and some kind of bread and stuff like that. But that was it. And so Sergio would just overtrain. I would overtrain. We would be doing like 30 sets of body part minimum. And so he was really a great training partner. And the thing that I had difficulty with in 1969 when I was competing against him was that I was literally just looking up to him so much. I was in awe of Sergio. You know, he was just so, I mean, had such a fantastic body. Unbelievable triceps in his thighs, and because he comes from the weightlifting. He was the Pan American champion in weightlifting. You know, and he did the front squat when he cleaned. He went all the way down to the bottom. It was like an unbelievable, I mean, he cleaned and jerked like 400 pounds. The guy was really, really strong. So anyway, so we were competing in 1969, and he beat me. Fair and square. It was not even a question. But, you know, I didn't come over here to America to get beaten. I came over here to win. So I had to kind of like get my act together and say, okay, this next year, I have to really grow up. And I got to go and win against him. And little did I know that I was not beating him in the Mr. Olympia. I was beating him right here in Columbus, Ohio. In 1970, Jim Lorimer, who then became my partner later on, called me and he said, Arnold, we're going to organize after the World Championships in weightlifting, we're going to organize the Mr. World competition. Do you want to enter? And I said, yes, if it works out time-wise, sure. I said, who is competing? And he would give me a list of bodybuilders, but he didn't have Sergio on it. And so I brought these bodybuilders from London, from the Mr. Universe contest back. So we were like on September, let's say 23rd, in London competing at the Mr. Universe contest. And then the following day was the Mr. World competition here. And then Jim Lorimer organized to have a private jet pick us up in New York, so we make it on time here. And so Dave Draper came, and Boyer Coe, and Franco Colombo, and myself, and there was like 6 bodybuilders that came from London, from the Mr. Universe contest. We came here, and we walked in. It was at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium, which doesn't exist anymore. They tore it down. I don't know why. It was an old historic building, and they put something there that doesn't look as attractive as the Veterans Memorial was, but I mean, it's Columbus's problem, not mine. But the bottom line is that we went in there and we started pumping up because the competition was like in an hour. So we started pumping up and doing all these things and practicing posing and all this. And all of a sudden this is Sergio Oliva walking out of one of the rooms, pumping up. I said, Sergio, what are you doing here? He says, competing, baby. Competing, baby. This is gonna be it, baby. You know, and I said, I can't believe that. I was not quite ready to compete with him yet, even though 2 weeks from now was the Mr. Olympia. But anyway, I won. And it was really great because it was like a whole other set of judges. So it was not the IFBB judges, but it was like the judges that the World Weightlifting Federation has set up. And I thought that they would be more interested in having a Sergio who won Pan American Championship in weightlifting, that he would win. And yes, I was a weightlifter in Austria, but not Austrian champion or European champion or anything like that. But, you know, I won. And so that was my first victory against Sergio. And so with that kind of momentum, I went then 14 days later to New York, and it was at the Brooklyn Academy of Music was the competition. And I beat Sergio again a second time. And so from then on, that was it. Then 1971, he didn't compete in the Mr. Olympia. He went to the Mr. Universe contest in London and competed there, and he placed then, I think, second next to Bill Pearl or something like that. So anyway, so we never really competed against each other again. But the bottom line is that I'm a huge admirer of his. I was a big fan of his. He treated me really well. He had me over at his apartment in Chicago for dinner, and it was really just what we talked about earlier, but you kind of like buddies, you help each other. He talked about being an immigrant from Cuba, and me being an immigrant from Austria, and we have to help each other and all of those kind of things. So he was a very thoughtful guy and a wonderful guy, and later on he got into some mess. I think that his wife caught him, and she shot him in the stomach a few times, right? It was just wild the way what happened there. And then all of a sudden, when he came to the court case, there was a new twist where he said, no, it didn't happen. They said, but he had a hole in his stomach. He went to the hospital. How can you say what didn't happen? So anyway, we don't know, right? But the bottom line is he came to the Arnold Classic, and he came to our bodybuilding championships for many times. And as a matter of fact, the last year, he was sitting out there as one of the guys signing, thousands of autographs and selling endless amount of pictures and stuff like that. So he was a wonderful character. Loved him. He had gold everywhere. Oh man! And then he had those pants that were high up in the waist, tiny waist, baggy kind of pants like you wore in the 70s, but gold. I mean, he loved gold. A gold necklace, a gold watch, a gold bracelet, gold rings. He was a real character, and a funny hat he wore. I just loved him. He was really great.
Now, if I asked Jay what his favorite physique ever was, Jay might tell me the 01 Olympia or the 09 Olympia. If I look over and ask Ronnie, he'd probably say the 2001 Arnold Classic. Phil might say the 2011 or 2013 Olympia. So many people know you, of course, from Pumping Iron in the 1975 Olympia. A lot of people think 74 was your best look. Do you look back and say one show, 1 year in particular, that was your best?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that people are very observant, because in 1974 I weighed around 246 pounds, which was a lot for those days. Nothing close to you guys, the body weight that you all had. But I was in great shape. And then Bob Rafelson came to me and said, okay, I like your personality. I like everything that I saw at the Olympia in New York, except you're too big for Stay Hungry, to do the movie Stay Hungry. He says, Sally Fields doesn't even weigh 100 pounds. So it would look too weird. It's like a freak show. It would look too weird to have you next to Sally Fields. And Jeff Bridges is also a smaller guy. It's not that big. So I said to him, I said, so how far do you want me to go down? And he said, I want you to go down to 210 pounds. So 246 to 210. So I said, okay. And so from September to May, I lost that weight. I remember at the YMCA in Birmingham, Alabama, he put me on a scale, and I weighed exactly 210 pounds. So now I did the movie with 210 pounds until June. And then after that, I had to gain the weight back again to compete in Mr. Olympia in South Africa. And I thought I'm gonna go and gain it all back, but I didn't. I remember I ended up in South Africa with 235 pounds, so that was like 11 pounds less. And then actually on the day of the competition, after the competition was over, I weighed 232 pounds. So that's literally what you saw on stage. So I was cut, I was perfectly proportioned and all of that, but it was not the size that I was the year before. So people are absolutely correct when they say that. So, these are the challenges that you have. But luckily, I did win. Luckily, Lou Ferrigno came there. And he thought, like Sergio, that the way to win against me is to kind of bulk up. So he got bigger, and therefore he lost his quality of the body. Because when Lou Ferrigno won Mr. Universe, he was ripped. He won twice the Mr. Universe contest in the IFBB, and he was ripped. So if he would have continued on that way, I would have been in trouble in 1975. But he didn't. He got massive, and therefore he didn't have the edge, and therefore he was no danger to me in this competition. And that's why Sergeant Dubray also beat him. So I came first, Sergeant Dubray second, and then it was then Lou Ferrigno. So, but anyway, the bottom line is I won again, even with the lighter body weight, and that was it. So I think that 1974 was my best year, because even in 1980, again, I did not make that body weight. I was too lean.
Now, one of the questions that, look, people all across the globe, the internet, social media, they always like to ask and hypothesize is, what would Arnold look like competing in training today? Is that anything that you ever look back on and say, kind of knowing then what I know now, and we had, one of the sponsors, Panada, with all the incredible machines, and we have, different training techniques and anything like that. Is that something that even, maybe not even now, but later on, post-retirement, you ever thought back on if I kind of had the machines and the technology, or was it all just kind of, I would have made it work either way?
I tell you, I never think that way. I never think that way. I love that I'm in awe of bodybuilders that are winning after me. To just watch them, from Samir Bannout on all the way up to Ronnie Coleman and the whole list, everyone that is sitting up here. I just like to just look at like a fan and just look up on the stage and just say to myself, wow, look at this back. Wow, look at those deltoids. I mean, it's to me, that is so wonderful to kind of admire these guys, but never to think about kind of what would I be like if I would train like them, or if I would take this and that like them, or if I would have this and that machine. No, never. Because my thoughts are going all about how can I make the sport of bodybuilding bigger, not how can I make myself bigger. How can I make the sport bigger? So this is what it's all about. And so to me, to see the guys progress and get bigger and get stronger and get more muscular, I just love it. And the fans love it, and so this is why I promote this competition every year, and that's why we're promoting it around the world, because it's not about me, it's about them. How do we make them make more money in the cash prizes? How do we kind of compete with the Olympia to kind of move up the cash prizes to their level? Then they move it up again because they want to beat us, and then we move it up again because we want to beat them. And who benefits from all that? It's the athletes that are competing. So this is what I think what it is all about. So I just love watching them and just freaking out, sitting in the front and freaking out when they shoulder pose and they see deltoids that I've never seen before. I mean, it's just amazing kind of stuff. And you guys, I mean, both of you have done such a good job yesterday and 2 days ago. It's just amazing. It's amazing. And all the other ones as well. It's just fantastic.
Now, you've been openly critical of some of the posing in the IFBB for a handful of years. And we spoke to these gentlemen about posing earlier before you made your way onto stage. Of course, in 2016, they introduced the new classic physique division, which came with, a little bit at the time, mixed opinions. But one thing we saw from the classic physique division right away is the aesthetic physiques came back, but the posing started coming back. The art of posing started coming back. And as we saw the guys in the classic physique division really focus on this, it started spilling over back into open bodybuilding again. And as the classic physique guys got better and better, we noticed the big guys started putting more emphasis on their posing. And now, you know, fast forward to 2025, you're able to be very complimentary of some of the posing of the big bodybuilders. And there was a pretty solid handful of years where that wasn't the case. Talk to us about sitting out in the front row at last night's show and seeing some of the guys, even the biggest of guys like Derek and Samson and Andrew, of course, with his very unique routine, bringing the art of posing back to men's open bodybuilding.
Well, I think that what you guys did is exactly what I was talking about. You hit the pose and you stay. Why? Because you're basically saying that the judges have nothing to hide. So why would I get off that pose in a second? Hit the shot and stay, so that the photographer can at least get a shot. But there's still others that were competing 2 days ago and yesterday that didn't. I still saw them moving, you know, to go. And yes, they're trying to choreograph it with the music, but if you can't see the pose, if you do a side chest pose and you move out, and I can never see the side chest, it doesn't help. And so, to me, that was always my criticism, was kind of like, let's have a really good posing routine where you kind of display your assets, the strong points, and where you're able to hide as much as possible your weak points. So that was always the idea. And I think that what you did was fantastic, and that's what I'm looking for. But what we have seen like 10 years ago, there were bodybuilders up there on stage. Can someone get me a water? Thank you. Oh, we have the water here. Did you open it up? What's the matter with you? Come on now. You can do it. Thank you. Thank you. 10 years ago, I saw bodybuilders that were shaking on stage. Now, excuse me, when you have gone through all of those competitions to work your way up to the top, and now you're doing a pose and you're shaking, get off the fucking stage. Go to an old folks home, to go somewhere, but you're not fitting on stage at a professional show that is the top show in the world. When you're in a Mr. Olympia and when you're in the Arnold Classic, you can't shake anymore. The shaking is over. And if you have a problem with the shaking, then get a medication that stops you shaking. Whatever it takes. But I've lost patience for this kind of stuff. And this is why I was talking earlier about the Rockettes. You know, there is no shaking. They dance. Perfect. Perfect moves. When you go and you go to the Olympics and you watch them do the shot put. I mean, everyone is performing perfect. Yes, some throw it further than others, but it's perfect. The moves that they make, it's all perfect. Because that's what you expect when you're in the Olympics. And the same is in bodybuilding. Don't start sweating out here all of a sudden because you do a few poses. Do the sweating backstage, or go home and do the sweating, or to go somewhere, do the sweating, but don't come here to sweat. It's over. Here you come out on this stage with perfection. I expect you to train your ass off before you come out here. Pose every day, an hour to 2 hours. Hold your poses each time for 30 seconds until you start shaking, so you get over the shaking. So then when you do your pose here for 10 seconds, you don't shake anymore. So this is what you do in order to get there. You know, you can't go into a UFC cage and start shaking in there. It's over. You know, you got to be ready. I didn't see those guys shaking. That's what was so appealing yesterday and 2 days ago. There was no shaking. You know, so, but 10 years ago there was. So I was complaining about it. And the guys couldn't keep their stomach in. Now it's much better. Now they've started concentrating on that. You know, now, of course, I can go person by person through it and make improvements, because when you sit out there, you can see things. But I tell you, it was 100 times better what I see now than what I saw 10 years ago. And I kept complaining to Jim Mannion and to the IFBB. I said, guys, you cannot just give points for size and for muscularity. You got to give points for performance. If you don't give points for performance, these guys are just going to stand out there and they're going to hit the pose, and that's great. But one of the first things that I remember when Franco and I took ballet, you know, this ballet class, not that we wanted to be ballet dancers, it was too late for that. But they were the ones that were saying, well, you just always concentrate on the final pose. And I said, yes, so what's wrong with that? And the girl said, well, have you ever timed out how much time there is when you hit the final pose versus when you are in transition to the next pose? And she clocked and timed us. And so Frank and I, we were doing our posing routine, and it ended up that the transition took longer than the actual pose. So she said, this is like an acting. I said, what happens in between your dialogue? And so we started thinking about that. I said, yeah. She said, so I want you to go, instead of just doing the shot, then stopping, then turning sideways and doing your side chest pose and stopping, and then go to the back and do a back pose. She says, I want you to go and get dramatic. Start looking and make moves. She says, and then get into the pose. Because the judges will also see what you do in between the poses. They never stop looking. And so we started really including that in our posing routine. And now a lot of them are doing it. You see wonderful hand movement and drama, and you see looks, and you see positions that you don't know yet what is this going to end up being. Why is he turning sideways? But he turns sideways because he wants to come over to this side. He wants to show the drama. And so this is what is important, is to learn all of those things. Performance and posing is so important, because this is how you sell yourself. And as I always say, coming from the marketing background, you can have the best product in the world. But if you don't know how to sell it, you have nothing. And so we are standing on a stage and communicating with the crowd and with the judges that I'm the best. So therefore, I have to look at them, and I have to show, and I have to be proud of every pose, and have to stand there like it's a sculpture. No shaking, no nothing, no moving from one pose to the next too quickly, and all of that stuff. So that's what it is. So luckily the IFBB started paying attention to that, and now bodybuilders are posing much better. And they can be still much better than that. But there were a lot of the guys now that won that are really excellent, and I was proud of that.
All right, now we have a very diverse audience here today. How about a show of hands? How many people are attending their first ever Arnold Sports Festival? Wow, a pretty good amount of people. How about put your hand up if you've attended 10 or more? How about 20 or more Arnold Sports Festivals? And how about 30 or more? We got any people out here who've been to more than 30? A few over there in our corner. Now, the most hands actually went up for attending their first ever Arnold Sports Festival, which is great. So for those people out there attending their first ever Arnold Sports Festival, we see on the jackets and the shirts and all the great apparel that we have, 1989. How did everything start back in 1989, coming up with this idea of having the Arnold Classic?
Well, we had the Mr. Olympia and the Mr. Universe contest here, and Mr. International year after year. When the Mr. Universe, then Mr. Olympia, then Mr. Olympia and Mr. Universe, then Mr. International, and so this is how we went. And one time the Weeders came to me and they said, look, you can't kind of have a monopoly on those competitions. We got to give it to other countries and to other promoters. And I right away agreed. I said, you're absolutely right. The Olympics are in different places all the time. The World Championships are in different places all the time. We should open it up and we should have a bidding war, and whoever makes the best offer should get the competition. And let me come up with an idea how we still can have the competition here in Columbus, Ohio, without losing that what we have. And so we came up with the idea, well, let's just use my name. Then we don't have to worry about, competing and worrying about, someone else should get it and all of that. And so, because in golf they did that a lot of times. And so we just decided to call it the Arnold Classic. And then the Arnold Classic was first just a thought of a bodybuilding competition, but then it became slowly, manufacturers wanted to display their stuff over at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium out in front when people walk in, so they put their machines there. Then they'd expanded to downstairs. Then we had them display downstairs the equipment, and it started getting bigger and bigger. And then we said, okay, why don't we move the expo to the convention center and have the competition over there? And so this is how the whole thing grew, and eventually it became that big that we have now over 200,000 people coming through here in a 3-day period, a 4-day period. And we're going to expand even that. We're going to make Thursday also a day of where especially the people that are in the business can go and shop around and do all that, and then open it up to the public on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so we are really delighted that we found a great, the sweet spot, what we call it, with a combination of sports events and also, to do commerce, just to have people sell their goods, promote their goods here, and all that kind of stuff.
Now, of course, it started back in 1989 with just bodybuilding. All the divisions have been added over the years. But one of the unique things about the Arnold Sports Festival, it's kind of like a strength sports Olympics of sorts. How did that come about? What was the process from, hey, we have this bodybuilding competition. We have the best competitors from all over the globe in bodybuilding. Let's expand on this and start adding other sports, because that's something that we really don't see in the rest of the world of bodybuilding. You have bodybuilding competitions, and yeah, there's a couple shows that might include maybe powerlifting, but as far as having this wide scope of sports, from gymnastics to martial arts to everything, how did it grow to that from just having bodybuilders here?
Well, it started out actually bodybuilding, then it was bodybuilding for women, then it was fitness for women, then it was the amateur competition, Mr. International, and then it was powerlifting, then it was weightlifting. And this is how it grew. Then we became the world's strongest man competition and all kinds of different games. And then it had a lot to do with the different sports federations getting in touch with us and saying, look, you have so many people coming through. Our sport doesn't get this kind of exposure. Do you mind to get us a hall where we can go and do gymnastics? Can you get us a hall where we can have the cheerleading competition? Can you get us a place where we can have a chess competition for the kids? And this is how it went. All of a sudden the archers came and they said, we want to do archery and competitions in that. And then the martial artists came and they said, we want to do martial artists competitions. Boxers came and said, we want to do boxing competitions. And this is how it just went. And then we ended up with over 60 sports from around 80 different countries around the world coming together here. And then the sponsors grew that way. They had their needs. and asked us if they can come and sponsor the events. And so this is how the whole thing grew. And the key thing is kind of to have someone in charge. And we are very happy that we have Brian Powers, you know, who is, where's Brian? You know, come on out here, Brian, and say hi. Yeah, there he is. Look at this. Yeah. Because, you know, it's like I learned this in politics very quickly, that you can have all the great ideas, but if you don't have someone that makes the train run on time, someone that is your campaign manager or someone that's your chief of staff, you don't have much. You need people that help you. And, you know, and so Brian, of course, is an experienced promoter, and he also understands that the world is the marketplace. It's not just Ohio, it's not just Columbus, but we want to spread out all over. So that's why we have the Arnold Classic in Brazil, and we have it in Europe also, and in South Africa, and in places like that. So we're going to make it grow. Eventually we're going to go to Dubai and have Arnold Classic there. And so, you know, it has to grow, because as I said, the objective is to promote fitness, to promote movement, to promote exercising every day, because it does not only make you feel good physically, but it makes you feel good psychologically.
Now, another one of the questions that we had from our audience that was...
I just want to add one more thing. What we pay attention to, and you saw a little bit of that yesterday on stage when you saw this wheelchair athlete come out and hit those extraordinary poses. What we are about is that we want to sell always the idea that fitness and training is for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're handicapped. We don't care if you're handicapped because you're a wheelchair athlete, or if you're a Special Olympian and you feel like that you need extra help and extra training. We want to have everyone have a place to compete and to train. And this is what we are promoting. And I always say to gym owners, don't call yourself a successful gym owner just because you make a lot of money. You're a successful gym owner when you can also accept a certain amount of people that can't afford your membership, a certain amount of people that maybe are handicapped. So because we want to, I always promote the idea that everyone should be able to be fit and to be healthy.
What I was saying is, one of the audience questions that we had is, it brought up you and everything that you're doing moving forward from here on out, and what drives that. Of course, you've done everything: bodybuilding, politics, movies. You continue to do movie projects. You know, we all watched Fubar, which was a phenomenal show, kind of a comedic spin-off of your character that you had in True Lies of sorts. And for somebody who's done everything and could just retire and hang out with your donkey and mini horse and the animals you have on your ranch, you keep working and you keep pushing forward. Of course, we had the great Netflix documentary, The Book, which I know so many of you have. The Book, Be Useful. We have one right over there. What drives you to keep going through a time where so many people might just retire and say, you know what, I'm going to take it easy?
Well, I do want to take it easy, but it's just that I cannot see yet the reason why to retire from something that you have fun with. So if you have fun, let's say, hanging out with your donkey, why would I go one day and say, I'm going to retire today, I'm not going to hang out with you anymore? Wouldn't make any sense. And the same is with playing chess. I love playing chess. Why would I retire from playing chess when I love playing chess? I love doing movies. You know, it's so much fun when you read a script and then you kind of see the character in there, and then you talk to the director. How do you see the character? And you start working on the scenes and rehearsing and all that stuff. And then being on a set with all these talented people and act out. I mean, it's like being a kid again. You know, that you're acting out a certain thing, and the director is telling you, no, give me more of this. Oh, no, this was a little bit too angry. Remember, you're playing Santa, so you have to have always a sparkle and it give a little bit of hope while you're talking, doing your dialogue. And so it's fun to craft that and to mold that and to work on a set like that and to do a movie that eventually comes out and you bring Santa with his magic power and all this kind of stuff, or to do the Terminator, and to be able to do the kind of things and to play around on the screen. So I just enjoy those things. And then, of course, I started out having this desire to do something that you give something back to your community. Because I'm an immigrant that came to America with nothing, and everything I accomplished was because of America, so I felt like, okay, I should give something back. So I started training Special Olympians. Back in the 70s, I became the national coach, then the international coach, traveled all over the world. Then I started becoming the President Bush, made me the chairman of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports, and sent me to all 50 states to promote health and fitness amongst the youngsters in the schools, in the public schools. And I loved that. I was in the middle of doing Terminator 2 and doing True Lies and all of those films, Last Action Hero, and I was traveling around America and promoting health and fitness in the schools. So it's kind of to give something back. And I started enjoying that so much so that it's an addiction in a way, that I eventually ran for governor, and started after-school programs and all of that. And so this is stuff like the day I go home after this, and I'm going to an environmental conference when I go to in end of March. And then I go and visit some schools to promote after-school programs. And so how can I retire from that? That is so much fun to go to the kids and to tell them that they should stay in school, they should stay in the after-school programs, they should get their tutoring, they should go into their homework, and that they should set goals for themselves, what they want to be, so that they can go and follow through and do the kind of things to achieve that goal. And all that. So this, I feel like kind of like I have been motivated by so many people in the world, and I want to do the same thing, and I enjoy it. So why would I retire from that? Or coming to the Arnold Classic. I mean, promoting the Arnold Classic, so you won't be to have fun and promote the Arnold Classic to say, oh, I think that I'm now 78. I should stop promoting the Arnold Classic. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, if I say that, I hope that all of you signed right away a letter and sent me to a shrink or to a mental institution, because they must be meshugane if I say that I want to retire from promoting the Arnold Classic, right? So, I mean, there's no such thing. So, no. I will have all the time in the world to relax when I'm 6 feet under. As long as I'm not, I will move forward, and I will have fun, and I will do my movie projects and the Arnold Classic and the environmental speeches and the pump-up speeches and the writing books about how to be useful and all of those kind of things. I will continue doing that. It's that simple.
Now, you spoke a little bit earlier about some of the movie roles that you had, some that were harder work, some that were more fun. We had a great audience question that was, what movie character did you play over the years that you thought was the closest reflection to your actual self?
I think Twins. I think Twins was the character. Because there's, I feel that I'm pretty smart. I felt that I was pretty fit and strong. But I think that some directors were smart enough to also see through all of this and see the naivety in me, and to see the kind of innocence and the shyness and the pureness and all of those kind of things that you don't see on screen or that you won't see in a public event like that. And so they tap into that, and Ivan Reitman was very good in that, and Danny DeVito. I mean, they were very good in tapping into that, and me, and to be able to bring that out. That's why the movie ended up being very successful. And so and the same thing will be the case also here with Santa Claus, playing Santa Claus, because Santa is kind of the fish out of the water, kind of when he comes, and he always doesn't have his bag. So there's a certain kind of where I'm bumbling around and kind of like I'm helpless, which is not often that you see of me, but that is what you will see then. So it makes it fun to do that. But I mean, I think Twins was the closest character. And then the one that I always wanted to be is Terminator, because I think that's, you know, I mean, it's fun to kind of walk through things, through walls, and to just kind of eliminate the enemy in front of you and all that stuff. It always sounds good, but it's a movie. You know, you have to also know this is not reality. So that's not how we deal with problem solving, is to just go in the police station and just wipe out every police officer and just destroy the whole building and then move on. That's not reality. That's a movie.
Now, talking about Twins, that came out in '88. Now, you were coming off of Conan the Barbarian and the Destroyer in '82 and '84. We had Commando in '85, Predator in '87. You were the biggest action star in the globe, and in '88, you make that shift. I think some people probably looked at it as he's really stepping outside the box. Was that a concern for you at the time, being the biggest action star coming off of, I mean, two of the greatest action movies ever? Still to this day, I think we can agree that Commando and Predator are two of the best ever. But so you're coming off those movies, your iconic roles, and now they want you to switch gears and do a comedy with Danny DeVito. I mean, how did that look to you at the time?
Well, no one wanted me to switch. But remember that I always talk about break the rules, but not the law. And this is like breaking the rules. The rules were kind of like, if you're an action star, you continue doing action movies. And this is how the studio makes its money, and then they're going to invest in something that they've never done before. It's kind of, don't fix what is not broken. And so, of course, no studio wanted to do a comedy with me. And then I found Ivan Reitman and Danny DeVito. And Ivan Reitman said, you know, I'm going to write 5 different projects for you, just 5 pages in each project, and kind of give you an idea of what I would like to do with you. And he sent me 5 projects, and one of them was called The Experiment, which then ended up becoming Twins. And so I read that, and I said, oh my God, this is fantastic. We should do that. And he says, we should do it. He says, but the only thing is that it's very hard to sell. He says, Universal Studio, the head of Universal Studio was my lawyer. He's now running the studio. He says, I'm going to go to him with that idea. And he says, we just have to make it attractive to him. And I said, well, let's make it attractive and just say, we're not going to take any salary. You just don't pay us. And we're going to go and get a back end. So ownership of part of the movie. And Tom Pollack liked that idea. So we worked it out that we got kind of 40% ownership of the movie, we 3, Danny and Ivan and I, and then we split that up amongst of what was our last salary, really, and then percentage-wise, who should get what. And so the movie came out, and it went through the roof. The movie only cost $16.5 million, which is really, really cheap, because we didn't take any salaries. And so we were able to do this movie for $16.5 million. The movie came out, they made $130 million in this country, and another $130 million overseas. So imagine now, you own 40% of that. So it's that was the most money that we have ever made on any movie, right? Including, you know, the big salaries that I got. So that's how that happened. It was like, you know, because we were able to take the risks ourselves as much as the risks that the studio took. And that's how it got made. It became successful. And then right after that, I was doing Kindergarten Cop and then Junior. And, you know, the idea of True Lies came out of that. Let's do an action movie that's combined with the comedy and all of those things. So from then on, it was like every year I did 2 movies, an action movie, one was a comedy. So this is how it went. This is how we broke the mold.
Now, this question's kind of twofold. Was there ever a role that you turned down that afterwards you were like, saw the movie come out, like, oh, I wish I would have taken that? Or was there ever a role that you wanted to get that maybe they went with somebody else, for as crazy as that sounds?
Or The Rock, the movie The Rock, with Sean Connery.
And Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage, yeah. So I turned that down because I was doing Eraser, and Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer came to my trailer, to my motorhome, and presented me that script. It was like 80 pages, and it was kind of like endless amount of pages were kind of like hand scribbled over it and things cut out and erased. And I looked at that and I said, guys, what am I looking at here? And they said, well, this is The Rock. It's going to be fantastic. We have Sean Connery. I said, that's great that you have Sean Connery. I said, but this is all, I said, I can't even read this stuff. I said, well, can we not type it up so it's like, how many pages is it really going to be? Oh, 120, but we haven't really finished the end of the script yet, or the end of the story. We're still kind of working on that. So I said to myself, you know something, guys? This is great. I said, but I have already my next movies, which is Batman and Robin, and then after that I do another one. And so I said, you know, I don't have time for this. I said, this is not even finished. And so I turned it down. And, you know, then a year later or so, they did get the act together, and they offered that character to Nicolas Cage. And the rest is history. It was a very successful movie. Nicolas Cage, of course, is a brilliant actor and did a great job with that. So there's projects like that I have, like, for instance, Die Hard, you know, was offered to me, and I was right during the shooting of Predator. But I already had 2 movies lined up after that, so I couldn't do it. Or they would have had to wait, which they were not willing to do, and they got Bruce Willis. And Bruce Willis was excellent as the character, and did a fantastic job, and the movie was highly successful.
Well, I tell you what, there's been so many of the classic movies that you've had, so many iconic scenes. I know one of the favorites, and somebody had asked a question earlier whether you actually ever got to sit in any of the tanks you've driven, or whether you got to sit in an actual cockpit of a Harrier jet, or whether that was just a movie prop for True Lies. And they wanted to know some details on that one.
Well, no, of course they had a real Harrier jet there that I sat in, and then they had the cockpit there that I was doing most of my acting out of, and there was not a real Harrier jet. It was just part of a Harrier jet that was suspended hanging on a crane. And so there were various different ways of shooting those scenes. But I have a model of the Harrier jet that Jim Cameron gave me after the shooting hanging in my office. But just a model, not a real one, obviously, but I mean a model. But it was really wonderful to work with those airplanes because they were very, very sophisticated, and they literally could land on that bridge, on that 7-mile bridge that is there in Florida. And they have tremendous power, and it was really well written, the way Jim Cameron wrote that into the script. And that's Jim, you know, Cameron, he can write like no one else, and it makes it so big and so entertaining because of it. Yeah.
Now, you've talked about, obviously we have a fun time when you talk about taking your accent removal classes and things like that. You've talked about how big Hollywood executives said that wouldn't work out for you. Of course, one of your more iconic, or maybe most iconic roles as the Terminator. You said that your accent actually helped you get that role. There was other people being considered for the role at the time, but it helped you because your accent gave you almost a machine-like quality.
Well, actually, you're right, that's what Jim Cameron said, that when the movie came out, well, it was actually two things. When Conan came out, John Milius said, if we wouldn't have had Arnold, we would have had to build one. Because there was really no one around that could do the role that was that muscular of the way Frank Frazetta envisioned Conan to look. And so that was number one, where I could go to the press and say, you see, you said I would never make it because of the muscles. Now you see, here's John Milius saying that if we wouldn't have had Arnold, we could have done the movie. We would have had to build one. And then, of course, 3 years later comes out Terminator, and now Jim Cameron says, what really makes this movie work is that Arnold is different. I mean, his body is different, and also the way he talks. I mean, he talks like a machine. So it's much more believable for him to be the Terminator. And so it was, both of those things was something that I was able to go and say to the world, you see, you never listen to the naysayers, because they always will say it's impossible. They always will find reasons, you know, or kind of like, you know, complaints about something that you do. So just pay no attention to that, and just get rid of those negative people, you know, that always find a problem with every solution.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the Arnold Sports Festival, an incredibly busy weekend for Arnold, so we thank him very much for taking the time that he's taken with us this afternoon. How about we all stand up, get on our feet.